Welcome to the Smith and Rowland Show. Let's join our host, Alan Smith and Jeff Rowland.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the casting of pods at the Smith and Rowland Show. And it's good to see you again today, Mr. Alan Smith.
Good to see you, Mr. Rowland.
How are you today?
I'm good. The wind's blowing. It's cold outside.
It's cold outside.
Another log on the fire.
I ain't kidding.
I'm telling you.
And the older I get, the colder it seems to get every winter.
Well, I don't know that it has anything to do with it, but it does feel that way.
It does feel
It does feel that way. Well, I tell you what, too, it's getting a little colder in D.C., Washington, D.C., on a lot of different fronts.
It really is. It really is.
And,
there's so much going on, you can't keep up with it all.
I mean, to tell you, Trump has got it in high gear.
He really does.
And they're rolling out the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched some of the video on trying to get Cash Patel voted in. And if you notice a little aggravation in my speech today, you'll know why. I'll tell you what's the truth.
Yeah,
it's just about all I
when the election was over, I was in hopes that a message would be received by Democratic leadership where we could get back to two political parties that at least had an element of common sense in both. And
well, the Democrats have. I mean, every time I try to get up a little bit of my Christian demeanor to apply towards the Democrats in our Congress, then I hear them talk and they just shoot it right in the foot every time.
I mean, they do. They haven't changed in their philosophy at all.
No, it's just really not good.
And their messaging is the same. Mm-hmm. They're fighting for all of the things that got soundly voted down in the election. So they're basically fighting against the will of the American people.
Well, it makes, definitely against it. And where you could have some empathy, if you will, or if you could at least feel sorry for people that are ignorant of just common sense, it's making it hard for me to feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
When I hear them talk, I'll be honest with you.
It's sad, again, because now you don't have two parties that you can have any confidence that there is going to be a rule of common sense to govern. It's just not there.
Well, and it goes beyond that into being evil.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just
absolutely
evil.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a registered Democrat, and I've never changed how I registered. And I'm a registered Democrat, and because my daddy was a Democrat, my granddaddy's a Democrat, and everybody was Democrats. And of course, the truth is, my father, he voted for the person, so he didn't care if how he was registered. But the main reason I'm going to have to switch over to something else, independent or Republican or something, I don't know, I'd probably go independent, but is because I just don't want to. I don't want anybody to think I'm identifying with.
Yeah, you don't want to be aligned with that. No.
I mean,
agree.
It didn't used to make any difference, but
it does
now. It's where it's going to make a difference.
It really does, because the ruling elite in that party, they're bent on a woke philosophy, on a woke ideology. Yeah. I don't know how that you can.
Well, it's not heaven bent. It's definitely hell bent. I mean,
and I don't know how you can find all of the waste that Elon Musk has found, and I'm talking just primarily about the waste of money where we're funding transgender ideology around the world. It's not here; it's around the world. We're doing that, and throw a fit because he's finding it. You know, and Elon Musk even said, well, the ones that's throwing the loudest fit are the ones that's guilty of the fraud.
And I'm hoping now that it's no wonder some of these guys are pitching such a fit over Cash Patel.
Yeah, exactly.
Is because, I mean,
his goes a little deeper. His is not just they spent money wrong. His is
it's criminal.
It's criminal. Yeah. Of course, I think that the spending of the money is criminal.
It's definitely criminal.
Yeah, I do. I think it's criminal. It's robbery at the very least, especially when you can confidently say, okay, we can save $1 trillion. Think of that. This just.
I can't even hardly think about it.
I can't wrap my brain around that fact. And we're borrowing money from China to do it.
Yeah.
Because taxpayers ain't got enough money to pay that.
I mean, just
So, I mean, they're borrowing money from China to be able to, I don't know.
And then it ends up back at China.
Yeah. Or in Biden's pocket. I mean, just say Hunter's
or somebody's. Well, Jeff, we have the question I think here is we're seeing a lot of things the lights are being shown on, our bad behavior, if you will, to say the least. But it goes totally against the role of America in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm still of the persuasion that the role of America in the world was to take the gospel to the world. Mm. And so look how the enemy has made such to use your old word, a buffoonery out of all of this behavior that's, I mean, now you can't even stand to watch it.
No, you can't. And it's sickening, and it kind of gives us a little, I guess, bird's eye view into why we were talking about some of the things we've been talking about over the last 3 years in this particular podcast. We had, how many conversations did we have where we said, I'm just sick of talking about this and sick of talking about that. I had no idea even to the level that we were being driven to do so.
No, none of us knew.
But when you find out that you was talking about the role of America, and I cannot hardly fathom, just with what we now know, what light has been shined on what is going on. Mm-hmm. I can't hardly fathom the fact that it is our economy that's holding up the rest of the world.
The world.
So when you get into the prophetic scriptures of a one world economy, we're basically there. And it's our economy. If you think about that, it's our economy. And some would say, oh, well, China's bigger than we are. Well, watch this. If there was no America, China would crumble
wouldn't be a
China. Cheap tent. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying that we're basically holding up the rest of the world with our economy. So the role of America is, I agree, what we were established for, I think, was for a twofold reason, which was to be a friend and an ally to Israel and to give the gospel to the world. Under the Biden administration, didn't start there, started further back than that, but there's been that groundswell in the Democrat Party to abandon Israel and to embrace their enemies. And so that's been going on, and we saw it kind of come into play pretty heavily in the last 4 years.
Very heavy.
And instead of preaching the gospel, we're preaching the ideology of transgenderism. Have we taken leave of our senses? The answer is we have. And again, Trump's moving fast, and to be quite honest with you, probably not moving fast enough.
Trump had a speech. I guess was this after? Is this on the prayer breakfast?
Yeah, it was after his inauguration.
And then
February 6th, I think.
Okay, and so Jonathan Cahn had a word at that prayer breakfast. And he really challenged everyone that was there and listening, challenged America.
Challenged me.
Yeah. And of course, his challenge was nothing short of revival, that the United States is now set and poised for a true spiritual revival. And then in Trump's speech here, we see at the beginning, on down in his speech, he talks about the role of faith in America. From his speech there at the prayer breakfast, says, from the earliest days of our republic, faith in God has always been the ultimate source of the strength that beats in the hearts of the nation. We have to bring religion back. We have to bring it back much stronger. It's one of the biggest problems that we've had over the last fairly long period of time. We have to bring it back.
Yeah.
That's the way he started.
Well, and he was talking about that in his campaign. And I go back to, I think it was right before he was elected. No, it was right after, I think, that he won the election. He came out with a campaign to put a copy of the Word of God in every home in America. And did a commercial that I think, if I'm not mistaken, John Rich was in on that with him. That was a media blitz for just a few days of let's put a Bible back into every home in America. What was intriguing to me at the National Prayer Breakfast is when Jonathan Cahn was talking, he was drawing a parallel between Donald Trump and the prophet Jehu.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And he was, drawing some similarities, how that Jehu fought against Jezebel, who served alongside of her political husband for 22 years and then 14 years by herself. And he drew the parallel with Hillary Clinton, who had served alongside of Bill Clinton for 22 years and then 14 years by herself. And
wow.
So he drew all those parallels, but he basically came to a conclusion that coincides with the word God gave you earlier in the year, that this is going to be a time of a second chance. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Cahn was bringing up the fact that, winning the election's small. Mm-hmm. It just gives us an opportunity is all.
That's right.
And the opportunity that it gives us is not to change the laws, even though that's great. But I loved what he said. He said, if you change the laws and don't change the hearts of people, when the next ruling administration comes in, then they'll just change the laws back. So, and he's right. We've seen that cycle over and over again. And so he says that the only hope we have is revival. I agree with him totally. And so it's, as Trump is moving with rapid speed, if the Church of Jesus Christ don't rise up in America with the same rapid speed, then I fear that we're going to enjoy 4 years here where some things get done, but in the next administration, it's just going to change right back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Without the spiritual awakening.
Yeah. You got to have the power of the Spirit of God to do some real change in the hearts of people.
And that's going to need to come through the churches, don't you think?
Yeah, it can't come through the political. It can't come through politics.
If the churches don't rally behind that idea.
And I think we have to move as swiftly as Donald Trump's moving. Mm-hmm. I really do. That's kind of the same thing in some ways that J.D. Vance shared in Munich. Because over in Britain, they're putting people in jail for standing along the street praying. If they think you're praying, the police will come. They'll ask you, and if you say you're praying, they're going to put you in jail. That's going on in Britain. Right now. That attack on free speech is going on in Germany. It's going on all over Europe. J.D. Vance said to them, he said, in Germany, for example, we have thousands of American soldiers protecting them. Mm-hmm. But he said, your values are not lining up with America's values. Mm-hmm. He said, how long do you think
that's going to last?
That our people are going to want to protect if we don't have the same values? Mm-hmm. And he's right. And there's going to be a realignment of nations. Mm-hmm. And I think all of this is prophetic.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's starting to concern me a little bit about which side we're going to end up on. Mm-hmm. Quite honestly.
Talking about the USA.
Yeah. But Trump, he says in his speech here, we have to bring religion back. This is language that he uses.
Right.
We have to bring it back much stronger, he says. And then he goes on down and says Thomas Jefferson himself once attended Sunday services held in the old house chamber on the very ground where I stand today. He said, so there could be nothing more beautiful than for us to gather in this majestic place that is majestic and reaffirm that America is and will always be one nation under God. These are good words. At every stage of the American story, our country has drawn hope and courage and inspiration from our trust in the Almighty. Deep in the soul of every patriot is the knowledge that God has a special plan and a glorious mission for America, and that plan is going to happen. He says it's going to happen. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I hope that happens. I hope it hasn't already happened and been spent. I hope it will happen again in the future. The reason I have a little hope for that, though, Jeff, is because I don't think God is wasting Donald Trump's time either. I don't think he's wasting the prayers of the people that's been praying for a change. And I think the worst thing that the extreme left the worst thing they did, and this is normal, but the worst thing they did was to mess with the election. But you and I think that you can look at the votes and tell somebody messed with something.
Yeah.
But it's going to be seen that was the worst thing they could have done.
Yeah.
was to give Trump another 4 years to prepare.
I think that's exactly right.
And
I think
they
that's
shot
pivotal.
themselves in the foot.
I totally agree. I think the more this is playing out, it appears as though that the 4 years he had off, he needed. He needed not to be president. He needed 4 years to plan. I heard a guy say this morning, he said it's like a football coach. He said Bill Walsh, for example, who was the head coach of the 49ers, and all of them do this, I think, now, but offensively, you script out the first 15 plays. And that it's just a script. You study the script, you go out there, and this is what you do. It's already predetermined. This is what you do. Then as you go through that, you evaluate the game to see what kind of adjustments you might need to make along the way. It appears that's exactly what Donald Trump's done. He has scripted out his first 100 days. This is what we're going to do. This is, and I don't think he's making these decisions on the fly.
No.
I think they're well thought out.
They're way too thought out to be able to change, what's happening here. And there again, I think they're voting on Cash Patel today. We could see the vote even before we get done with this podcast. I'm not sure if they're going to, if them other gaps don't hush, but we could see if that happens even yet today. I think also, Jeff, that we've talked about the deep state, and I've heard the deep state for a good while now. Quite a few years it's been spoken about, and I used to follow the John Birch Societies years ago, and they talked about the deep state, and I knew the deep state was a deep state. I just didn't know it was this deep.
Yeah.
Of the corruption and that last hole too that it looks like Elon has found. It's almost like a bottomless pit of money being funneled into this. I forget which group it was in. But he was talking about that. Do you know what the...
Well, no, but what come to my mind when you were saying that, how deep does the deep state have to be when you have $4.7 trillion that's just completely untraceable? What kind of bookkeeping do you have to have?
Well, they've already approached Zelensky just on trying to wrap their head around the money that's been... He already cannot account for half of our money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's in an account somewhere, probably with his name on it. Have. And we're talking about $350 billion over there. So, how deep does the deep state? How deep does it run? And I think that goes to the heart of what Jonathan Cahn was saying. That if we don't have revival, and if the hearts of the people are not changed, laws being changed are going to be great, but all it's going to mean is when people get in office in 4 years from now, those laws could go right back. And the system could be completely restored in this deep state thing. It's odd. The Democrats are hollering because of all of the things that Trump's doing. If you go back and trace it under Bill Clinton, he did the same thing.
Really?
He cut the federal workforce by 424,000 people.
Did he really?
And nobody was hollering then. Nobody said a word then. He did the same things. And but now there is this huge outcry against this evil dictator called Donald Trump.
Clinton maybe cut that many jobs, but with the people that Trump has in his cabinet now, they're going to find out
where the money went.
They're going to find out names and bank accounts.
And I think that's what is driving a lot of the anger. And
because I think some people are going to be caught.
Yeah, they're in panic.
Yeah,
it brings to light something. We should have talked about this, so don't shoot me for this. We talked a little bit yesterday in the podcast about the sovereignty of God. Book of Daniel says God sets up kings, God brings kings down. That's in his sovereign control. God has a timetable. He's eternal, but he has a timetable. Our days, for example, are numbered by the Lord. I personally, I think you can shorten your days even in God's timetable by certain things. The Scriptures teaches that. If you honor your father and your mother, your days will be long on the earth. Different things like that. But he teaches us, he says in the Word, teach us to number our days.
That's right.
Knowing that there is a specific timeline that God has. I think there is a specific timeline God has for the end of days. I think there's a specific timeline that the Lord has for the return of Christ. I think God knows exactly when all that's going to be. I heard an old preacher say the other day in a careful study of Ezekiel 37, 38, and 39, how that there was coming a day when Russia from the north would come down through Turkey and Syria and want to ravage the wealth of Israel, the wealth of the Dead Sea, and the resources of the rich land of Israel, that's what would motivate them in their journey toward Israel, and that the Western powers would rise up, as to combat that, and that Russia would be joined, and we know this is true from the book of Revelation, that Russia would be joined from the nations of the East, and China would come and help them, and that the Western powers would once again be victorious, to the point that, according to Ezekiel 39, it's going to take 7 months to bury the dead there. And then he said, from the Western powers would arise that world dictator that Israel would receive as their Messiah, based on those events. It makes you wonder, the old-time preacher was saying America would lead the way in that Western front. And it's a little bit scary, some parallels you can draw on that side of things. If I'm, right. For example, we know that the Antichrist is going to receive a deadly wound in his head. Just certain little little things that you look at, and it makes you wonder, it makes you think, what is the role of America? We're not named in prophecy, so what would be the role of America in something like that? Please understand what I'm saying. I'm just spitballing some things out there from some loosely held parallels that we do see, but what I am saying is God, through His sovereignty, sets up kings, and God, through His sovereignty, brings kings down. But we do know that there has to be an alignment between Israel and the man of sin that says, I'm your Messiah. What kind of a role does America have in that? I don't know that question can be answered, but I do know that it doesn't change what's right or what's wrong. This was the question I was asking myself last night as I was thinking about all these things. What does that mean then if the Western powers, if that's where the Antichrist is going to come from? And I do believe that. I have more of a bent toward that he would be European in his descent, but I'm saying that from the Western alliance that stands against those northern powers that's trying to come, those Western powers will align themselves with Israel, and Israel will look to the leader as their Messiah, at least for that first 3.5 years of tribulation. But it doesn't change what's right. Does that make sense? And it's a confusing contradiction in some ways in your spirit. If you wrestle with it and think about it deeply enough, you'll come to this place where you'll say, okay, are we supporting the beast here? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Of course it does. I think for sure our known role in all of this, Jeff, is to support Israel.
Yes.
We're not the limelight here. It's front and center. I think our role is to support Israel. And I don't think that Israel would be where it is without the role of the United States.
There's no way.
So I think that is our role. So I'm encouraged that we're still fulfilling our role.
in that regard.
In that regard.
Absolutely. And I think even more reaffirmed now than the last 4 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was getting very, you and I both were getting very concerned about we were totally losing our footing in at least, having that role.
Yeah.
And I'm really amazed that Trump is a strong person for Israel as he is, and I kind of wonder if that doesn't come from his wife some, but he seems to be really dug in.
Yeah,
we're supporting Israel, and
I don't think he could have picked a better ambassador than Mike Huckabee.
Yeah,
for
oh
Israel.
My goodness,
I just don't think he could have picked a better one. No, he knocked it out of the park on that deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Huckabee is,
Is he there now?
Well, he hasn't been confirmed, but he's already working in that capacity.
I can't imagine him not being confirmed.
No, me neither. That's good. That'll happen.
Yeah.
But he's already basically working in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't have picked a better one. So I agree with you. Our role in terms of being a friend and an ally to Israel has to be. That's biblical. That's a biblical role. But we know that that Satan always takes the Word of God and mixes it with just a little error.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To think that Satan's not to say he's antichrist is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. I don't think he's going to come off as being heralding satanic garbage.
Mm-hmm.
His rhetoric will be Christian in nature, I think.
Right.
I think it'll basically have to be.
Mm-hmm.
It puts you in a precarious situation. Well, it puts you in this situation. Our trust cannot be in Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Our trust has to be in Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Our trust cannot be in the superpower called America. It has to be in the kingdom of God.
Mm-hmm.
The superpower of America is merely a tool, and it's a tool in the hand of God that God's going to wield and use until our time is up.
Yeah, I think so. Because, come on, Jeff, you can't, just as certain as darkness the last 4 years had the prevailing wind of our nation, there's no doubt that the light has come.
Yeah.
And it is now the prevailing light of the nation. And I just draw up every day on how, how dynamic is the light going to continue to be, to shine light in all of these dark places of our government and the bank accounts. And of course, the truth is you can follow the money and you can find the thief. Follow the money, you pretty much clean up the whole house. If you just follow the money, because it is, usually that's what's the driver in all of this darkness and everything. So I'm very excited that for the sake of our country and also for the sake of those, just like with USAID, Jeff, the opportunity to rob America was evidently made so easy. That my heart goes out to those that have even robbed our country, because it's almost like it's just laying there.
I don't know how they couldn't have.
Yeah, it's been made so easy that you almost. I'm sure a lot of them thought it was the right thing to do.
Well, there's 1 million people. 1 million, I think they've discovered so far. That's over the age of 100. That's drawing Social Security checks,
and they're being cashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just little things like that adds up. You say little, and I can't even fathom. You know what I'm saying? But that's just a little drop in the bucket. And you've got all of that darkness that's going on, thievery, most of which I am convinced that most of this money is going to fund the enemies of Israel in other countries. That's figured out ways to receive these funds. I truly believe that,
because they don't have any type of GDP. They don't.
No,
they're not manufacturing, or they're not doing anything. They're not contributing anything.
That's right.
Except chaos.
That's right. Yeah.
To the region over there.
Yeah, that's it. We're the richest nation on the earth. Over there, they are the poorest people on the earth and don't care. And the reason they don't care is because they're living off of our money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And those things do have to be changed.
I hope and
Trump
pray
went
they
on
are.
to say in this, and the thing is with Jonathan Cahn's word that he gave, that now we're in this season where we have an opportunity for revival, and revival is going to be the only answer.
Mm-hmm.
Trump further in his speech says this. He said it was God's hand that guides us every single step of the way, he said. And all of you and the things we have to do is to see the defining role that faith and prayer have played in the life of our nation.
Amen.
He said, and you just have to look at this building and you can look at each other. You can really look at each other, he says. It's defined almost everyone in this room.
Wow.
He said, I think faith has been very strong with the people in this room.
Wow.
Now,
Amen.
for him to say things like that, I can't help but believe that maybe this 4 years has been granted by God in time for a move of his spirit to change the hearts and the lives of people in this nation. Because without this nation,
It's going to be a mess.
it's going to be a mess.
It's going to be a mess. That's right. All right, Mr. Rowland, we are overtime right now.
Okay.
And we'll pick up again here tomorrow on
Sounds
Smith and
good.
Rowland Show.
Okay.
And we'll see if we get talk about Cash Patel being voted in tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, buddy.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining today's Smith and Rowland Show. You can check out our website at kingdompropheticsociety.org and our daily unplugged podcast at smithandrowlandshow.podbean.com. You can also join us on Amazon, Apple, or Spotify.